Undocumented migrants face dangerous journeys only to be sent back to unsafe situations in their home countries. Low-income and racialized people endure lengthy, crowded commutes on underfunded transit systems to reach work, and informal recyclers and bottle pickers negotiate back lanes for bottles, cans, and other recyclables. Meanwhile, emissions from private jets skyrocket amidst a worsening climate crisis, as an elite class of millionaires and billionaires move through the world seemingly unencumbered. What these examples have in common is they highlight the inequities in movement experienced by different groups. Mobility justice is a concept that can help us think about the movement and lack of movement of people, animals, goods, materials, and information across the world. Movement is sometimes constrained, policed, restricted, or forced, and mobility is inseparable from broader systems of power that negatively impact a range of marginalized communities, while privileging only a few. Through mobility justice, which arose out of activist and academic circles, including the work of urban anthropologist Dr. Adonia Lugo, we can begin to address some of these challenges. American sociologist Dr. Mimi Scheller proposes 3 main mobility justice concerns, one of which she calls a refugee crisis. This crisis is related to the forced movement of undocumented migrants and the related racism and exclusionary practices that migrants are often subject to. Another mobility justice issue Scheller points to is the climate crisis, and the idea that limitless movement and endless growth are leading to devastating effects for the planet, often disproportionately affecting the global south. The final concern is related to urbanization, and I will give an example from my research at the University of British Columbia in Canada. I focused on informal recyclers and bottle pickers who often traveled by bicycle in Vancouver, on the ancestral, unceded, and traditional Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh lands. I spoke with men who collect recyclable materials by bicycle and exchange the materials for money at recycling centers. When I cycled with some of these men while they performed their day-to-day duties, I learned about the ways in which they cultivate relationships, find support, and use cycling for mobility and to earn money. I also learned that these men commonly experience stigma from other road users and through police surveillance practices. While the City of Vancouver promotes sustainability, I found bike infrastructure was not well set up to support participants, nor were they seen as being green. While commuter and leisure cyclists are prioritized, our consumption practices are linked to the mobilities of low-income people who recycle bottles for a living, existing outside of typical depictions of cyclists. Unfortunately, when these cyclists did receive attention, it generally wasn't the kind of attention one would want. For example, participants reported frequently being stopped by police and ticketed for small offenses, such as cycling on a sidewalk. Consider that some of these offenses occurred because bicycle infrastructure was not built with recyclers on bikes in mind, and that individuals doing this kind of work often experience stigma and are more likely to be stopped than other groups. This example of mobility injustice illuminates how systemic forms of discrimination operate to marginalize this low-income group. Finally, participants use their bikes as a mobility aid, as cycling was often easier than walking. We can see here, through a different lens, how low-income people with mobility needs, including older people and people with disabilities, may benefit from using bicycles. In the future, how can improved and more inclusive infrastructure, advocacy, and policy consider these cycling populations? While mobility justice issues are big, they are relevant everywhere and require a range of tools and perspectives to help address them. Wherever your passion lies, consider how issues of movement and mobility are relevant to your interests. How would you like policymakers to address your mobility-related needs and the mobility-related needs of your communities? All people should have the ability to freely and safely move. We can work toward creating a world in which all beings experience mobility justice.